Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sue Long-Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Now we start out with good intentions, with whatever we want to achieve in life. But let's talk about weight loss. We start out with good intentions. We want to lose those couple of kilos or pounds just to feel better and healthier. But we find that we self-sabotage ourselves before we even start. Do you get the idea? My guest today is going to help us talk about self-sabotage and what we can do to overcome that. Jennifer Powter is the founder of the Weight Loss Academy and best-selling author of Diet Disruption, the weight loss solution for the chronic serial dieter, and also Stop Sabotaging Your Weight Loss, why you do it and how to fix it. She is one of the nation's top life transformation coaches and works with high-achieving, driven women who want to feel good in their own skin and feel confident again. As a weight loss and mindset expert for women over 40, Jennifer has helped thousands of women reclaim their bodies and their minds by taking a truly soulful and scientific approach to weight loss and establishing a solid foundation for lasting transformation, one that empowers women and helps them stop sabotaging their success. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome, Jennifer. It is lovely to have you join me for an episode of the Women Living Well After 50 podcast.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here with you, Sue.
Yes, and we've just been talking off air and, I can feel your vibrancy and passion coming through. So I know we're going to have a great chat today. Now, we talk about, we're dieting and we're talking about, there's so many diets out there. But before we get on to all of that, we've got lots of great information coming today. I want to start with your story, which then leads, what led you to where you are today?
Okay. I will share. And I love sharing this story because there's all sorts of aspects of vulnerability and humbleness that I can bring to this. And so for me, this story goes back, more than 15 years. My background had always been in the exercise sciences. I did my undergrad, had my master's degree, and probably like many women, I didn't really struggle with my weight in my 20s. Like I always thought that I needed to lose that like 5 or 10 pounds. But of course, like when I see pictures now, that was insane. I was fine. And as life goes, it sort of seems like the older you get, the more responsibilities you acquire in terms of a relationship and then maybe a family or you have kids. And no one ever explained to me how busy it was going to get and how easy it would be to fall off my own priority list. And I really did, Sue. I had these ideas of what it took to be a good wife and a good mother, but I had no role modeling in my own life of what it took to take good care of myself. And it was just very easy to start to burn the candle at both ends and to be chronically exhausted and to think everybody else's needs and wants mattered more than my own, which quite frankly is a painful way to live. And so I would start to do things to give myself treats, whether it was chocolate or the extra food or the extra latte or the glass of wine at night. And then very slowly, those decisions about rewarding or indulging or treating myself because, oh my gosh, I'm such a good person, such a good mom. I've had such a hard day. After my second child, that baby weight never fell off. In fact, I continued to gain. And which drove me crazy because I was used to living in a body that was, I felt more comfortable in, and I didn't feel comfortable in my body at all. And I think the painful thing for me remembering about that experience, that whole experience, was the shame I felt and the embarrassment. And it was like the bigger I got, the smaller my voice became, the more insecure I got. I lost such a vital part of who I was, or at least I thought I did. And I remember I was holding a glass of wine, I was eating chocolate chips, and I was like, yeah, I don't know why I can't lose the weight. And I was looking at the wrong things. Back then, I thought I needed to move more, eat less. And I didn't think these little things I was doing was actually having that much of an impact. The dieting industry is very, it's very influential. And of course, I thought, oh, I must just not be doing enough. And it began a real soul searching process for me where I tried to train myself and I basically burnt myself out, made myself even more sick. And I had to do a hard reset with my life. And I had to get really honest with what was going on, not just physically, but emotionally. And that was where the work came in.
And that's the difficult part, isn't it? You're so busy for a start that you don't take time to reflect what's happening to you. And then you sometimes don't want to face the reality either because you feel overwhelmed. I've let it go too far. I don't know how to get back. And I think that then you bury your head in the sand and, as you say, you get smaller. You don't want to your self-confidence just takes a beating. And like there's for women that do want to lose weight, it's a minefield out there. You've only got to scroll through social media and you either see these women that are, impossibly their physique is impossible, or you've got to try this diet, or don't eat this. No, don't eat that now. You've got to eat this one now. And it's just so confusing that, any wonder people just give up.
No, it's no wonder.
No, that's right. But you also think that there are lots of things that we're not aware of. As you said, you thought you could just exercise more, eat less, and that would happen. But there's a lot more to it, isn't there? And I want to talk about that today, that it's not just about what we're eating and what we're exercising. There's so much more to it to help us lose that weight or to just live a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, there really is. And, I say lots of things on repeat in my communities. And one of them is you got to get healthy from the inside out. You cannot do a physical transformation without doing your inner work. And, you said something that was so honest, which is doing this work is scary. You don't always want to face what's there. You might even have an inner knowing or intuitive hit that something's off, but you have no idea what you're going to do, or you don't want to blow up your own life, or you don't want to, it's terrifying, especially if you were on a path of living that you thought your dreams were all going to work out for you. And, they don't, by the time midlife happens, that's what I love about midlife women is we've been through pain. We've been through hard. Our lives have blown up in different ways, whether it's through loss or death or betrayal or whatever it is. And there's some wisdom that we now get to bring and apply back to our own life. And I think that there's a tenderness that for women who've been dieting for decades, which is mostly women I work with, is we've got to bring some real practical knowledge back to this, not fad diet-based tactics that are so sexy to market. And they offer you the world. Lose 20 pounds, do it in 10 days. Like we all know that that's not going to work, but we have hope that it's going to maybe just be a kickstart.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. That's what hooks us in. It's that hope. Oh, look, it's only 10 days and I can get to where I want to be and everything will be okay. Yes. And for a lot of times, yes, if you starve yourself, you just don't eat for 10 days or you just have a shake, you're going to be losing weight. But then once you go back to your normal eating, it all comes back again. So you're in that vicious cycle all the time of being on the hamster wheel where you just can't get out of it. So, so I think that, you talk about self-sabotage and what we're not aware of. So I'd like to talk about that because that doesn't only happen with dieting. or wanting to lose weight. It can be across the board where we self-sabotage. So I feel that our conversation today will have a general appeal as well, from the self-sabotage point of view.
Oh, 100%. And normally, if we're doing something in one area of our lives, we're doing it in other areas, right? Because the same roots of insecurity or fears, they have a ripple effect in our life. And so, what I would love to do is just talk about the basic definition of sabotage. And
yes.
then,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So, sabotage, the definition of it, it's the act of destroying or damaging something deliberately so that it does not work correctly. With ourselves, it can be consciously or subconsciously damaging something so that your life is not going according to plan. It is not going the way that you think it should go, or in the way that you have dreamt it to go. And this is the most crazy thing, because why would you engage in anything that's self-sabotaging when you want it? Right? Like, I think that's the thing that is crazy. And we can know something, and then our actions can be so contra to getting us further ahead. In fact, we'll often put ourselves further behind. And this is the crazy making space of dieting, relationships, parenting, you name it. And usually we'll be doing something in this area around it.
And that's a good definition, because I think we get a lot of buzzwords, and you hear self-sabotage and you just, what does that really mean? So that was great. You also talk about the family members of self-sabotage, and I hadn't heard about that before, so I'd really like to delve into that as well.
Yeah. So self-sabotage, until I wrote my book, and I did a ton of research in this field. And what was really interesting to me was I talked about these different aspects that all of us engage in. I'm going to share them with you right away. But then it all made sense. And so the very first one is, for anybody listening or watching, that mean voice in your head, that mean voice that you would never, ever say the things to somebody else that you say to yourself. That's called, number one, it's self-criticism. Okay. So one of the distinct members of self-sabotage is self-criticism. You engage in it. You're listening to that voice 24/7. You might identify with it. You might even believe the things that it says, like you're a loser, a total failure. You're so stupid. Everyone thinks so. No one likes you. Why would you try this? And it likes to remind you of everything negative about yourself so that you don't change. And this is really important. The brain does not like change. Okay. It likes comfort. It likes security. It likes to keep you safe. So that was the first one. And I'll tell you the second one too, because this is a big one for women. And the second one is self-betrayal. And what self-betrayal is, and we engage in this very early on in life, it's saying one thing and doing another. It's white lies. It's telling yourself, I'm going to get up when the alarm goes off. I'm not going to hit snooze. The alarm goes off. You hit snooze 5 times. I'm going to work out today. You don't work out today. I'm not going to drink the wine. You drink the wine. I'm not going to have this. You eat it. So when we start to take a look at what our relationship to self is, and are we acting with honesty and are we being in integrity with ourselves? We're not. We're constantly negotiating. We have great logical excuses. We know how to let ourselves off the hook. And so the end result is you don't trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, of course, there's going to be an element of a fear-based relationship that you have with yourself, because you don't do what you say you're going to do. And this can make our fear of success and our fear of failure feel very real.
Yes, yes. And just on that point, I mean, normally we wouldn't tolerate someone else saying they're going to do something for us and then they don't do it. Or we might accept it, but, usually we'll sort of get upset if that happens. But it's amazing how we don't, we let ourselves off the hook. But again, it comes back to that fear. It comes back to those limiting beliefs that perhaps, where the self-criticism and that mean girl in our mind saying you can't do that, or what makes you think you can do that, or it's too hard. So it is difficult to fight against that negative voice in the head that's telling you can't do something when you really want to give it a try and overcome and achieve what you want to do. So mindset does play a huge role in anything we do.
It's 100% huge. And can I share the other two
Yeah,
cousins?
sure. Yeah,
Okay, there's
sure.
two more because this is where
No.
this is going to go somewhere. So the next one is self-neglect. Okay. So as women, and this was me. So I'm not coming from some mighty perch of, whoa, no, I totally did this. We start to get conditioned to the belief that what I need doesn't matter, what I want doesn't matter. And that can also have been reinforced from when you were a child. Maybe as a young girl, your needs and wants didn't get met. And so very early, you stopped having them. Self-neglect can be around somebody else's needs and wants are more important. So I'm going to people please. I'm going to bend over backwards. I'm going to do what I need to do to get the love that I need and want, I crave, so I can feel important and valued. And so self-neglect is crazy because if you don't have if you don't take care of yourself, how do you have the energy to engage in the mental aspect of this journey? You don't. And then the last one, and I think this is a really interesting one, it's self-abandonment. It's when you just give up. You don't care anymore. You feel blah. It's like, well, whatever. I guess this is just the way it is. It's very seductive to just believe things can't change. And in fact, it legitimizes not taking action. And it's like an inability to stand up for yourself. You may be engaged in any kind of patterns from trauma from childhood where you don't even know how to address your own needs and wants. In fact, you don't even know it's a question to ask yourself. And so all of these tendrils, if you will, coagulate as one messy ball of string to create self-sabotaging behaviors. It's not just one thing that does it. It's a cluster. And that was helpful for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's helpful, I've taken a few notes there myself, but I think that's the other thing. You just say it's under one umbrella, self-sabotage, but you don't delve into what that means. You don't delve into all those different areas. And I actually felt quite sad when you said self-abandonment, because that means that you do get to a point where you give up, and that's quite sad, isn't it? Because it's stopping you from living a great life. And enjoying life, and you just it's really, that one struck a chord with me. I hadn't thought about that before.
Well, would you ever let someone you cared about give up on their dreams or to stop having the access to the joy that exists in life because this is just the way it is, or this is how things are? You'd be like, no, this is just how it is right now. And it can be different. Like we would give so much more encouragement to someone else, but with our own self, I find this whole conversation so tender, mostly because I lived lots of this and I've got painful memories of what those patterns felt like. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect at not doing these things now. The whole goal is awareness. At least if you're aware of what this is, you can start to ask better questions and do more work to overcome it. Otherwise, it just feels like that hamster on a wheel that you mentioned. It's exhausting. Yeah.
Now, I want to be talking about the fine theory in a moment, but I also think that we start to compare ourselves with other people. We want to do things. We get overwhelmed. How do you make that start when you want to make a change? How, for me, my theory is that you just take one thing, or you just take a small step, because it's just taking that first step, isn't it, to keep going. And it doesn't mean you're not going to fall off track. And I think that what happens too is we start doing things and we're really great in the beginning and we're gung-ho and we do get up when the alarm goes. We do work out, we do eat healthy. And then something happens, like, for example, I've just moved house. My whole life was sort of living out of a suitcase. So I wasn't probably eating as well as I should and things like that. So life will happen. You fall off track and then you start beating yourself up about it. And then you say, oh, well, what's the point? So yes. I think that we have to realize that, we will fall off track, but that's not the end of the world.
Yeah. I'm like, we need to expect it, not beat ourselves up for it. So I've got a couple of metaphors for this. I don't know which one's going to be the best, but I always say it's like if you've got a car and you walk out in the morning and you've got a flat tire, it's just a flat tire. You've got one flat tire. But can you imagine if you're like, oh, I've got a flat tire, and you go back inside and you grab a knife and then you slash the other three. So now you've got 4 flat tires. Like now you've got a problem, like a big problem. Before you had that's annoying. So many of us are slashing all the tires when we only have one flat tire. It's no big deal. You've got 3 other tires that are just fine. Pump it up. Let's get on our way. But I think, and for women with, again, the all or none, right? All or none thinking, the perfectionist mentality, perfect or bust, black and white, good or bad. I have to be all the way good. And if I'm even a little quote unquote bad, well, then I suck. And it's like, why don't we allow ourselves some grace as we live our lives, and to let an oops be an oops, to bounce back like a weeble wobble, those weeble wobbles that kids used to, you bounce and then it pops back up again, and it's like, why don't we should be expecting that, because if we're alive, to be alive is to have problems. It just is. And to expect anything different means we're probably not going to be here. We'll be on the other side, which I don't want quite, anytime soon in my life. And I think there's an embracing this, where if you can just allow like the journey of life to be what it is and not get so frustrated with it, not judge yourself, again, this is the self-criticism. Oh, I said I was going to wake up early and I've only done it for 5 days. And then I slept in the 6 days. So screw it. Obviously I'm never able to wake up early. Well, you know what? You just slept in one day. Start again. Recommit. Start again. No big deal. That energy changes everything. It's when we're so hard and heavy with judgment, and then we pile on the like shame and humiliation, embarrassment. That's what makes change hard.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. Let an oops be an oops, because that sort of makes it less important, doesn't it, when you think of it that way? So now talk to me about your fine theory. What does fine mean?
All right. So I'll tell you. So this morning I grabbed a coffee from a coffee shop, and hey, how are you doing this morning? And she was like, I'm fine. And I was like, oh. And then I saw my mailman coming, and I grabbed him. I'm like, hey, how's your day going? He's like, oh, fine. And like we use this word fine all the time, and it makes me super sad. So first of all, I don't want to offend anybody in your audience, so I'm not going to use the exact word, but in my world, fine is an acronym, and it stands for effed up inside, nice exterior. Okay. Really hear me on this. When you're fine, so much of this is we are pretending. We've got this mask of fine on where we're smiling. But if we were to pull the mask off, we would see that we're actually in sadness. We've got pain. Something's hurt. Something's not going well. We're frustrated. We're lonely. Maybe there's some depression. Maybe we're not sure about what's going on in our life or somebody else's life. And maybe we're so afraid that if we're honest with people or even ourselves, it'll be too much. And so the one thing I know, Sue, is like all of us crave, we all want love. We want to be wanted and we want to be loved. And we feel like if we're too much, if there's too much going on, and if we're just fine, then maybe we'll be acceptable, we'll be tolerable, that we can tolerate our own self. But it becomes, we get acclimated to this. We get acclimated to pretending that we're fine. And then we numb ourselves to numb the pain that exists behind the mask with food, with booze, with drugs, with phones, with online shopping, with all the things, with being over busy. Over busy for a woman is one of the most common distraction techniques of your life. So you can just pretend and say that you're fine all the time. And, and this is one of the very precursors to self-sabotaging behavior, is saying that you're fine all the time, because it's not true. There's going to be criticism. You're going to be abandoning in some way. You're going to be engaged in self-neglect, and you're going to be trying to pretend that none of it's going on because you're just trying to hold it all together, when sometimes you really need to let it all fall apart so you can put it back together stronger.
Do you find, though, sometimes that might be our default position, because we think, well, if we say, well, I'm not really feeling that great today, the person, you don't know how they're going to accept that. You sort of think, oh, they don't want to know about my problems. Or if you you say that, they sort of look at you because they're just expecting you to say, yeah, I'm fine, or I'm good. And that's the end of the
For sure.
conversation.
For sure. And so I'll always, even with people, even with people, I usually say, oh, do you want my honest answer or the polite answer? That's my comeback nowadays. Want my honest answer or the polite answer? The polite answer is I'm fine. The honest answer is, yeah, holy cow, it's been a bit of a hard week. Here's what's going on. But every time I'm honest, I get connection. Every time I give the polite answer, I get surface level platitudes and I get superficial friendships and I get superficial relationships, which only reinforces the feeling of isolation and not feeling connected, not feeling seen, worrying that I'm too much, and then getting evidence that I am too much, or at least in my own mind. So I think you got to choose the people that I'm not saying that you need to overshare with, like, I don't know, the gas attendant, but I think with your partner, with your best friend, with the people who are close to you. And I actually believe that in most intimate relationships, both people are pretending to be fine and they're totally lying. And then we wonder why we have relationship problems, right?
And sometimes we have to be on the other side and maybe call someone out if you know that they're not doing too well, but they say, oh, I'm fine. Perhaps you should be saying, well, are you really, and trying to help them rather than just accepting their answer. So it can work both ways, really.
It does. It totally does work both ways. That's why relationships are so tender. And then we're influenced by our family of origin. And many of us were taught that the only acceptable way to be was fine. Put a smile on your face, or I'm going to give you something to cry about, or, oh, you think you've got it hard. And it became a one-upping, and so there's all of this stuff.
Yeah.
That we
back
have
in my day, you think you got it hard. Back in my day, I had to do this or that. Yeah. So, no, that's a really important point. And I do love the acronym, even though you didn't really say it fully. But
I wasn't sure what your
audience
that's right. Would appreciate.
That's right. But that says it perfectly. Now, we are getting on in the interview, but I do want to talk to you about the couple of books that you've written, because obviously, and also the work that you do with other women. I'd like to just touch on that in the last part of the interview, if I may.
Of course.
So what prompted you to write the books?
Funny. First of all, I don't consider myself a great writer. I definitely didn't. But back in 2012, I created a vision board and I cut out of paper a best-selling, an author best-selling list. And I wrote my name in it. Had no idea what I'd write about, but I knew I wanted to be an author one day. And after teaching the academy for so many years and sharing, the stories and the impact, there was a couple of things that happened. One, I'd been in my space long enough and I was going crazy in the diet industry. Like, it just feels like I'm such a small voice and I needed to have bigger impact. And so Diet Disruption was really the first book that I wanted to write to disrupt the dieting industry and the dieting mindset of women. That's not just physically harmful, it's psychologically damaging. And I had a lot to say about it. Like, I just found that I was on these like rants, and so that was the first book, and it was so well received, and to be a disruptor in the industry where we stop just trying to use tactics. And I always say it's the pills, the potions, the lotions, the teas, the cleanses, the detox, the things that disrupt your life and make you feel like you're worse off having done them, or you lose the weight and then you gain it back plus more. Like, isn't it time for that to stop? Don't women our age want to go after real change? And if so, you got to be done with that. And there is a different way. And so after the first book, I took about less than a year before I even published and started my second one. The next theme that came up is, okay, yes, but how? I know this, but I don't do it. And so there's this amazing wisdom women have where the accumulation of knowledge has been their focus. I'm going to learn. The more I learn, the more I learn. And then there's confusion. And the more they learn and the more confused they are, the less they do. And that self-sabotage exists in that space between knowing and doing. And I wanted to take the focus off of just the aspect of the food and the physiological journey, and with Stop Sabotaging Your Weight Loss, to really talk about the mental, emotional, almost like the mindset, the spiritual, the heart journey you have to be willing to go on to lose the weight.
And that must have been very satisfying when you finished both of them and had such a great response. Now, when you're working with women, you know, how do you start with them? Or, you know, what sort of work are you doing with them?
Yeah, I have a very, it's a small company and it's a very intimate company. And at the end of the day, my values in terms of how I connect and relate to women is, first of all, what I believe and have come to experience is women need someone to care about them. You cannot just be a number. That's, there's so many platforms out there where you're one of 1,000 or one of 10,000, but you've got the 20-year-old who calls you and it's like, oh, well, that's okay. Just try harder next week. And, off they go. And that doesn't work. So the behavior, I teach women how to lose weight. The Weight Loss Academy is founded on the principles of physiology and psychology of behavior change. You have to be willing to dive into both sciences for sustainable, permanent, healthy change. And, it's funny, does anybody else ever wonder why you did all the different things you've done in your life? And then you look back and it all makes sense. Every certification, or, I hated my degrees when I was doing them, but, I did a lot of work in emotional intelligence. I became a practitioner. I've been a coach, for a really long time. I had this degree and it kind of just all came together. And so I work with women through phases of programs. There's the first phase, 3 months. You cannot expect any kind of permanent true change if you don't have someone hold your feet to the fire for long enough. You can do anything for 4 weeks. But for 3 months of your life, a quarter of the year, can you stay committed for that long on your own? Most women can't, because they have self-sabotaging behaviors, their patterns, their habits. And then we have 6-month phases after that. So what I do is not sexy. It's about slow weight loss, healthy weight loss. It's about getting yourself back on your own priority list. It's about the non-negotiables you need to create in your life so that you can be a priority and give yourself the care that you need and deserve. And for many women, that's breaking the rules of how they've lived most of their life. I'm on the back of my list. I'm not a priority as long as everybody else is looked after. And so it's work. But, all of my clients in the first phase lose anywhere between 10 to 24 pounds. We have a near 100% success rate. And you do it without supplements, just by getting to understand your body. Because where else do you learn this? You don't learn it in school.
No. And I think also the why perhaps it works is, one, you take it slowly, because to me, a quick weight loss, as I said before, is not long term. It happens, and then you go back to your normal eating routine and it's all come back on again. So the slow method I definitely agree with, and learning, it's not just about your body, but also you've got the wisdom. As you say, you've looked back on your life and you think, well, okay, look at all these things I've done, and that's why at the time I didn't know why I was doing it, but now I do. A lot of the fly by night, for a better word, dieting, younger people, no offense, but they or it's a quick, as you said, just a quick check-in and off they go. You've got to have that support, I believe, that from someone who knows, who's been there and done that and understands, because if you don't have that support, it just makes life so difficult. And also it's a bit like going to the gym and other things. I take some online classes for women over 50, and I didn't become a personal trainer till I was 63, and I just turned 65. So it's never too late, everybody. But there's a lot of women that say to me, oh, when I go to the gym, I've got a young personal trainer. They don't really understand me, or it's unrealistic for me to look like them, that sort of thing. And they've got their place. They're young and beautiful, they're vibrant, they're ready to take on the world, they're very confident in themselves, which is great. But perhaps, you've got to find like for like. You've got to find someone who understands and has been down that road that can really break through, I think, to help you.
I totally agree. I think every woman needs to feel comfortable enough to be truly seen and not embarrassed to share her truth. My truth was I can't do jumping jacks. Every time a stupid trainer who was a man would tell me to do plyometrics or jumping jacks after I had my kids, I would be like, well, only if you want to puddle. Because I still had stress-induced incontinence, right? Like I had these issues and I couldn't just do sit-ups to work it out. It wasn't like that. And so it's very special. Like, and you got to go slower when you're a little older if you've been off your priority list for a number of years. You can't just immediately hop back into it like a 20-something. We've got to strengthen those tendons and those ligaments. But it's also, I always say, it's like strengthening the dendrites in your mind. You've got to believe you can. You got to believe it's worth it. You got to believe that there's something on the other side of the journey that's going to make the journey bearable. And because it's not always easy, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And it's not about the dress or the jeans. I mean, it starts that way, but I had somebody today and I'm like, so why is losing weight so important to you? Because sometimes women have just been in the habit of losing weight that they haven't even considered that they should just stop and just be healthy and be grateful for the body they have. And she said to me, without missing a beat, because I want to live. I'm not living. I'm afraid of getting sick. I'm not living the life I want to live. I can't travel. My knees are sore. I'm okay right now, but I am just a breath away from hypertension, high cholesterol, all diabetes. And she's like, I'm terrified, but I don't know what to do about it. And, it's tough. It's just really tough.
Yeah. No, well, it's great the work that you're doing, and I will actually be putting all the links to your books and what you do into the show notes so that people can contact you. And look, before we go, I do have one question, but before that, is there anything else that you'd like to share that perhaps I haven't covered as yet?
The only if we have a minute. Do we have 1 minute?
Yeah, sure. We've got as long as you like.
Oh yeah. A lot of what I want to share with women is there is an antidote to self-sabotage. And there's also a family that exists around that. And that is self-compassion, right? If you can have self-compassion for this journey, if you can have self-acceptance, if you can have self-awareness and some self-love, we live with one awareness around our sabotaging behaviors and we keep wondering what to do. And we've tried to judge and criticize and punish our way to health. But maybe I know there's a different solution, and it's gentler. It's some grace. It's some compassion. It's being willing to ask better questions of yourself, not what's wrong with me, but, I wonder what I can do differently. That can really make this. I mean, normally people listening to the work I do, I know the work you do is you're in a bind or you're looking for something to improve in your life and you're trying to figure out how. And it's like, well, you got to go about it differently. And it starts with the way you treat yourself, the kind of questions you're asking. You'll find a better solution the minute you start asking better questions and gentler questions.
And it's all about being kind to yourself and using kind language to yourself, the way you would speak to others. Think of yourself as someone else, a friend that you're talking to, and use that sort of language rather than the one that unfortunately we tend to use for ourselves most of the time. So before we go today, Jennifer, I just wanted to ask you a question. I ask this of all my guests, and that is, what does being a woman living well mean to you?
Means being happy. Like for me, it means choosing happiness. The last few years of my life, my world's been rocked upside down, left to right side. I've had incredible loss, and it's taught me about the preciousness of life, and that it's up to me if I want to create my life and live happy. If I'm doing that, then I'm living well. And if I'm happy, I'm going to be treating myself well. I'm going to be taking care of myself. I'm going to be connecting with friends. Like it involves so much of the social fabric and the mental health fabric that I need to have a nicely knit life. And so, and if you have a nicely knit life, it's okay if a stitch slips. It's okay if something, because you've got the rest of the stuff supporting the structure. And for so long, I lived unhappy, circumstantially, different. I was dependent on other things or people for my happiness. And it's really in this stage of life, I get it. It's mine to create, it's mine to own, it's mine to be, it's mine to revel in, and it's mine to change if something isn't working well. And I get to. It's a privilege to do so.
Yes, well, you're very inspiring. As I said at the beginning, I can feel the passion there. I can feel the energy that you have to not just help others, but to live your life, the way you're walking your truth, I suppose. And, it's great to see that. And I sort of admire you that you've shown your vulnerability, you've gone through difficult times, whatever that may be. But to me, you are really looking after yourself and making yourself a priority because of your attitude to life. And that's so inspirational to me, and I'm sure it will be to the listeners as well. So it's been lovely chatting with you today, Jennifer, and talking about self-sabotage, but also the good things that the opposite of that, that you just brought up towards the end there about self-compassion, self-love, self-kindness, because, if we can focus on the self-sabotage, why can't we focus on the self-kindness? Just flip the switch.
Totally.
And yeah.
Like both are possible. Engage in the one that feels better.
yeah, well, it's logical, isn't it? So and actually, midlife with the children growing, if you've got children, or your career might be slowing down, and as you're getting older, it's never too late to make those changes.
No, in fact, the best time is now, no matter what. Like there's never going to be a better time than right now. And I just, what I talk about, and I so appreciate the kind words, and it's one thing to feel it, but I think the greatest strength I have is I recommit to my happiness all the time. I get lost, I fall down, I can, the stitches can slip, but I recommit. And I think that's what women need to learn how to do. It's like, don't slash all the tires, just recommit. Come back to the game, don't just put yourself on the bench and get sidelined. It's like, come back and play again. And that's something I've had to learn. So if anybody's like, oh, I've got to learn that too, just know that you can. You just got to recommit.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, thanks so much again for joining me, Jennifer. And it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And as I said, I feel quite inspired from our conversation today. So I wish you all the best, and thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, Sue. And thanks to all your listeners and viewers. I hope if there's something that you heard that's going to make a difference. I appreciate you and the work you do.
Thank you. Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening and on the other side of the world, and I'm off to enjoy the rest of my day.
Lovely.
It was great to talk to Jennifer Powter today about self-sabotage, what you aren't aware of, and also her FINE theory, which I found just spot on, really. I also enjoyed the fact that she shared with us the flip side of self-sabotage, which is self-compassion, self-kindness, and self-love. So that's what I'd like you to focus on for the next week. That's it for this episode. But until we meet again, I hope that you will live life and enjoy life and be a woman living life your way. Bye for now.